welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to Global TV News Prime in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I am Queen Agaba. The Senate on Tuesday announced President Bola Tinubu's request seeking the confirmation of the nomination of 19 commissioners of the National Population Commission, NPC. The appointees are Emmanuel Eke from Abia, Clifford Zera Adamawa, Chidi Ezeoki Anambra, Issa Bertai Borno, amongst others. The president also asked the Red Chamber to confirm the nomination of Bashir Indabawa. The Senate, led by Senator Godswill Akpabio, referred the nomination to the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, to report back in 2 weeks. Vice President Kashim Shettima has charged members of the National Council on Privatization, NCP, to ensure their economic decisions and reforms were reflected in the lives of Nigerians from all parts of the country. Shettima gave the charge during the induction program for members of the NCP and other critical stakeholders at the center of the NIA headquarters, Abuja, urging them to defy the old way of doing things in order to pave way for economic growth that would be in harmony with the aspirations of the citizens. Vice President Kashim Shettima has also unveiled a bold vision for reforming Nigeria's transportation sector. Shettima, represented by Special Advisor General Duties to the President, Office of the Vice President Aliyu Modibo, unveiled the blueprint on Tuesday at the 5th National Summit of Chartered Institute of Transport Administration in Abuja. Shettima said that the federal government was committed to addressing the transportation challenges Nigerians were grappling with, which was occasioned by the removal of subsidy on petroleum products. He canvassed for a collaborative revolution with the Institute as the driving force for the blueprint. He stressed the need for a robust and efficient transportation system that would connect every part of the country and drive socio-economic prosperity. A high court in Abuja on Tuesday restrained the Commissioner of Police in Kogi, Bertrand Onuoha, from arresting the spokesperson of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, in the state. Farouk Adejo Audu also restrained the Inspector General of Police, the Director General of the Department of State Security, DSS, and the Director of DSS in the state. The restraining order against the security agents is to last until the final determination of a motion or notice for the enforcement of fundamental human rights brought by Adejo Audu, who claimed his life has come under serious threat from the defendants. Adejo Audu, a veteran journalist, activist, politician, and SDP spokesperson, had gone to court after altercations between him and the Kogi Police Commissioner Onuoha on election matters, after which the latter publicly tried to expect some unstated consequences. The Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, in collaboration with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, has held a conference in the Federal Capital Territory for Nigeria's health sector. Highlight of the event was unveiling of the Renewal Investment Initiative of the achieving the goals contained in the Universal Health Coverage of the United Nations. Global Television's health correspondent Fauzia Lukman brings us report.
With Nigeria yet to occupy its rightful place in the Committee of Nations as the Universal Health Coverage, the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Policy Dialogue have stated that the government is set to turn things around, adding that participation approach to policy design to sustain and to extend the policy implementation and evaluation phase is of immense importance. The Minister of Health, Alopate, in his remarks, said that the ministry is creating Basic Health Provision Fund to expand from 8,000 to 17,000 primary health cares.
It also created the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, which is an instrument that we're expanding to reach from 8,000 primary healthcare centers to more than 17,000 over the next several years in terms of channeling resources health workforce commodities to ensure that they serve Nigerians.
Meanwhile, the Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, said the agency is working towards actualizing the initiative through accessibility.
We're really doing from a primary health care perspective. If you is really driving to universal health care, what that means is that every Nigerian, wherever you are, whether you are in the southeast or the northeast or the north central, whether you are rich or poor, whether you have a job or you don't have a job, you can access the basic services that you need to stay alive and to stay healthy.
Speaking on reinventing the health system in Nigeria, the country representative of UNICEF Nigeria, Dr. Christian Muduante, says it marks a new beginning.
For Nigeria, it marks really a new beginning, the start of a new, bold and ambitious agenda to reinvent the health sector through the sector-wide approach initiative.
Highlight of the conference is the deployment of full commitment to initiative of change in the funding structure of primary healthcare level, with the hope of Nigeria seeing a significant difference in 1 to 2 years. Fauziya Lukman, Global TV News.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mahmood Yakubu, on Tuesday swore in 9 additional resident electoral commissioners. The Senate had on November 1, 2023 approved the appointment of 7 of the nominees of President Bola Tinubu as recs of the commission. The appointment followed Tinubu's request for confirmation of the nomination of the recs for INEC in accordance with the provisions of Section 154, subsection 1 of the Constitution. At the swearing-in ceremony held at the INEC headquarters in Abuja, Yakubu told the 9 new recs that the conduct of elections was not only a huge responsibility but also a sacred duty, urging them to be guided by the electoral legal framework, the code of conduct for recs, and good conscience. The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAMB, announced that candidates taking the direct entry examination will be required to undergo cognitive and verbal reasoning tests. Professor Isaac Oloyede, the registrar, highlighted this upcoming change during a virtual meeting with commissioners of education from the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, specifying that it will be implemented starting 2024. He stated that at the point of registration, all direct entry candidates must provide the following information: the registration and matriculation number of the previous school attended, where the qualification was obtained, subjects of qualification, awarding institution attended, and year of graduation, as well as admission letters where necessary. The Nigerian Senate has urged the executive to ensure allocation of at least 10% of total annual budget revenue to agricultural production. Chairman, Senate's Committee on Agricultural Production, Services and Rural Development, Salihu Mustafa, made the call in Abuja at the joint budget defense session of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Mustafa says the Senate and House Committee on Agriculture, Production, Services and Rural Development were concerned about the challenges facing the agricultural sector, adding that the non-oil sector remains the largest contributor to the nation's gross domestic product, with over 20%, despite the challenges. He decried that the budget allocation to the sector remained a far cry from the 10% of the nation's budget, in accordance with the Maputo Declaration to which Nigeria has committed. When the news cycle returns, CAC sets to delist 91,843 companies for failing to file annual returns. The news continues shortly with details of this and more right after this break. Welcome back. This is Global Television, bringing you live broadcast of the news cycle from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. On the foreign scene, Ambassador of the State of Palestine to Nigeria, Abdallah Shawesh, has condemned the actions of the Israeli prison administration against Palestinian prisoners held captive without no access to family and lawyer visit. The ambassador made the condemnation while addressing journalists in Abuja on the ongoing conflicts between Israel and Palestine militant group. Shawesh further condemns the inaction of Red Cross and other international human rights bodies to report the situation. Sharon Ajay completes the story.
The ongoing conflict between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas happening since 7th October, with Gaza being the center of the war zone, leading to the loss of thousands of lives and properties of both parties. The ambassador of the state of Palestine to Nigeria, Abdullahi Shawesh, in reference to the resumed attack on December 1st after a 7-day pause, aired his grievance, stating that there is no time for mourning in Gaza, adding that the Palestinians have completely lost hope.
On the day 65 of the textbook genocide, the death toll exceeded the 18,000. The majority of them is children and women, 281 healthcare persons, 77 journalists, 46,000 wounded, tens of thousands of housing units were completely destroyed, and another 255,000 were severely or partially damaged.
Technically stating the staggering statistics of the number of death row on the Palestinians, the ambassador objectively stated that the victims of the death are more of children and women, making it much more devastating.
This includes preventing family and lawyer visits, as well as daily raid on the prisoners' rooms, during which soldiers assault the prisoners with severe beating using batons, gun gas, and rubber bullet, leaving them with various deep wounds and fractures in their hands and legs.
Regarding the conflict, the UN has scheduled a meeting to cast votes on Tuesday, 12 December. Shawesh has urged the UN and member states to stand united to put an end to the war and massacre against Palestine.
The UN member states should stand very united to say enough is enough. UN member states should push their ultimate best to put an end to this slaughtering and this massacres.
Airing his grievance on the recent development of the Israel and Palestinian war, the ambassador of the state of Palestine to Nigeria asked for a ceasefire, quoting that silence is only needed when children are on their beds and not when they are being slaughtered. Sharon Ajay reporting for Global TV News.
Western powers and nations most threatened by climate change fought Tuesday against oil producer Saudi Arabia for stronger calls on existing fossil fuels as negotiators worked past a host-set deadline in UN talks in Dubai. The 13-day COP28 summit in the glitzy metropolis built on petrodollars has debated a historic first-ever global phase-out from oil, gas and coal, the main culprits in a planetary crisis of warming. But a draft put forward on Monday by COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber, himself head of the UAE oil company, fell well short, instead presenting reductions in fossil fuels as one of several options, with low-lying island nations warning that their very survival is at risk. Negotiators worked through the night, and the Emirati host promised a new draft to try to find a consensus. The United Arab Emirates, host of the COP28 Climate Summit, says it will seek consensus with a new draft deal after wide criticism of language on fossil fuels. Majid Al-Suwaidi, COP28 Director General, played down the attacks on the text released on Monday, saying the Emirati hosts were testing countries' red lines and were working on another draft under the rules of the UN Climate Convention. Agreements need consensus of all participants.
Have empathy. We need to have respect. We need to have an understanding of people's different circumstances and situations. In the UAE, we have great solar opportunities, but we don't have great hydro, right? We don't have access to those kinds of technologies. Other places do. And that's why it's important that we deliver consensus, and consensus can deliver ambitious outcomes. It's ambitious because we're all moving together, we're all moving in the same direction. That's what makes it powerful. And so I believe the consensus process of the COP is one of the most powerful processes of the multilateral system.
A United Nations report released on Tuesday says Myanmar has become the world's biggest producer of opium in 2023, overtaking Afghanistan after the Taliban government's crackdown on the trade. Myanmar produced an estimated 1,080 metric tons of opium, essential for producing heroin this year, according to the latest reports by the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime. The figures come after opium production in Afghanistan slumped an estimated 95% to around 330 tons following the Taliban's ban on poppy cultivation in April last year. According to UNODC, the total estimated value of Myanmar's opiate economy rose to between $1 billion and $2.4 billion, the equivalent of a 1.7 to 4.1% of the country's 2022 GDP. And at least 23 soldiers have been killed and dozens injured in Pakistan after militants attacked a police compound. The attack took place in the early hours when a vehicle containing explosives rammed into the building in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province near the Afghan border. A militant group affiliated to Pakistani Taliban has claimed responsibility for Tuesday's attack. Ahead of the vehicle ramming, several militants attempted to enter the compound in the Dera Ismail Khan district but failed. The group then used an explosive-laden truck to ram into the compound's boundary wall, which was followed by a suicide bomb attack which caused the building to collapse. 6 attackers were killed, according to the military. It also added that a total of 27 militants were killed following military operations in the area overnight. Pakistan's caretaker Prime Minister Anwar ul-Haq Kakar and caretaker Interior Minister Sarfraz Bugti condemned the attack. The Tariq and Jihad Pakistan TJP, which emerged earlier this year, said its members carried out Tuesday's attacks by militant groups in Pakistan have been on rise, particularly in its border regions with Afghanistan after the hardline Islamist militant group Tehrik-Taliban Pakistan TTP withdrew from a ceasefire last year. In business, the Naira appreciated by 27.16% to close at 864.29 Naira per dollar on the official investors and exporter window on Monday. This is as the daily turnover of the dollar surged by 86.83% to $132.46 million at the closing of trading from $70.90 million last Friday. The Naira's rise signifies a 234.76 Naira gain from the all-time low of 1,099.5 Naira to a dollar. It closed trading last Friday, according to data from the FMDQ Securities Exchange. On Monday, trading opened at 867 Naira to a dollar before hitting a high of 1,185.10 Naira to a dollar, then a low of 720 Naira per dollar. It eventually settled at 864.29 Naira per dollar as the daily turnover of the dollar hit $132.46 million. Monday's rate signifies a marginal recovery for the national currency, whose movement has been volatile since the Central Bank of Nigeria removed the rate cap on it. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, is pushing for the pricing of gas utilized by the electricity generation companies GenCos in Naira to allow better management of the foreign currency-related inflationary trends in the sector. The minister quoted the country's current pricing of gas utilized by GenCos in US dollars, noting that that was the major issue in Nigeria's power sector. Speaking on Tuesday at an ongoing 3-day ministerial retreat in Abuja, Adelabu said the pricing of gas utilized by GenCos in dollars affects the pricing of electricity, so to end users due to foreign exchange volatility. The development comes barely a week after GenCos warned that they may not be able to sustain current electricity supply levels following the payment of only 28.3% of an invoice for power supply to the national grid by the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC in the September payment cycle. Delta State House of Assembly has called for memoranda and contributions from the public on the Delta State Investment Program SIP bill. This was contained in a statement signed by the Chairman, House Committee on Housing, Women Affairs, Girl Child Entrepreneurship and Humanitarian Support Services, Bridget Anyafulu, copies of which were made available to journalists in Asaba on Monday. The statement read, the House Committee would particularly welcome written contributions from interested organizations such as the Ministry of Women Affairs, Humanitarian Affairs, Community Support Services and Girl Child Development, as well as the Ministry of Trade and Investment, non-governmental organizations and the general public. The Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, is set to delist 91,843 companies from its register for failing to file their annual returns with it. In a list published on its website, the Commission presented the names of 91,843 companies for delisting. This is 2,738 less than the 94,581 names of the companies it initially published in August. It is also less than the initial 100,000 companies that CAC says it will remove in an earlier announcement. The CAC says that any business that filed full annual returns but is still on the list should email compliance at cac.gov.ng within 30 days with proof that it did file. It also says that a company whose name has been taken off the register of companies cannot do business until the Federal High Court orders its name be added back to the register. The federal government, through the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, is exploring collaboration with World Bank to unlock financing and technical support for the development of the mining sector. This was revealed in a statement signed by the Minister's Special Assistant on Media, Segun Tomori, speaking during a courtesy visit to the Solid Minerals Minister, Dele Alake, on Monday. World Bank Country's Director for Nigeria, Shubham Chaudhary, expressed satisfaction with the renewed focus on the development of the nation's mineral resources by the current administration. Chaudhary stated that Nigeria is well positioned to make the mineral sector a major contributor to its GDP since the country has the majority of economically viable minerals. He reiterated the readiness of the bank to partner with the ministry on financing specific intervention areas and ensure effective implementation of projects. He also added that the bank is not restricted to providing financing alone, asserting it can offer technical assistance to improve mining operations in the country. President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Nigeria's Super Eagles forward Victor Osimhen on winning the CAF 23 Men's Player of the Year award. The president also celebrated the remarkable achievement of Asisat Oshoala of Nigeria's Super Falcons, who clinched the 2023 CAF Women's Player of the Year for the 6th time, and Chiamaka Nnadozie, who was awarded the Women Goalkeeper of the Year, as well as Super Falcons for emerging as the Women's National Team of the Year. President Tinubu commended the trio of Osimhen, Oshoala and Nnadozie for their outstanding performances on both national and international stages and for being sources of pride to the nation and an inspiration for aspiring footballers across the continent. Still in sports, Chelsea legend Didier Drogba has congratulated Victor Osimhen and Asisat Oshoala on their victory in the Confederation of African Football Awards 2023, sharing photos of Osimhen and Oshoala on his Instagram account on Tuesday to celebrate their wins. Drogba wrote, "Long live the new king and queen of Africa, hashtag Victor Osimhen 9, and hashtag Asisat Oshoala, and hashtag CAF online." The Super Eagles striker beat stiff opposition from Morocco and PSG defender Achraf Hakimi and Egypt and Liverpool forward Mo Salah to clinch Nigeria's first potty title in 24 years. Meanwhile, Oshoala clinched her 6th Women's Player of the Year award at the CAF Awards 2023. And that's it on Global News Cycle. We're on StarTimes channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms using @GlobalTVNG and other handles now showing on your screen. I'm Queen Aga.